Hi everyone, it's Achusi Kanku from Esports Africa News, and every day we bring you so many different topics about Africa or happening in Africa. And today is totally different. Every time we talk about esports, we only talk about the console games and the popular ones, but there is something else that's happening on the continent quietly, but is being leveraged across many countries. Today, I've got an important guest with us who's going to talk to us about their facility, their system, their structure that is going to possibly give Africa the way into the world stage. So, without much, I just ask Victor to introduce himself entirely and tell us what he does, and then we'll talk about what he's going to present to us.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Victor Hemel. I work for the company called ERA Advanced and the ERA Racing School. So we are a company, an engineering company, ERA Advanced, that builds electric race cars, and we build them from nose to tail. So we design all the systems that we need, we build the battery, we do the entire software suite, and so on. And then with the company called the ERA Racing School, we put them on the racetrack. So for 4 years now, we've been running a racing school at the Zolder racetrack in Belgium, where we can teach pilots from all ages on how to pilot a race car. Now, they just happen to be electric. They drive like a regular Formula 4 car. They have pretty much the same power to weight ratio. So about 185 brake horsepower for a weight of 630 kilos, at least when we're talking about our first generation cars. And so you hop in, you turn on the car, you turn on the high voltage, and you drive. You don't need to shift gears. And the cars are, of course, completely silent. Now, this is one thing that's quite important because in Belgium, the Zolder racetrack is located in quite a populated area. And people tend to complain when you race the entire season through. So that's why we've also built these fully electric race cars. And this allows us to drive on days where you aren't allowed to make any noise. So we can offer more track time and actually cheaper track time to our pilots. Now, we've just recently finished our second generation race car, which uses a completely new Formula 4 chassis. We've built a completely new battery, which has double the power for almost the same weight. We've designed a completely new data network, so how all the different systems in the car can talk to each other. And then, as a cherry on top, we've developed an AI racing module that pulls out all the data from the car. And can give live feedback to the driver. So while you're driving, it will take your data, it will adapt, and it will tell you, okay, you can go a bit faster in this corner, or you need to brake a bit earlier in that corner. At the same time, it's a system that also sends its data to the race engineer. So at the pit wall, you can just follow along with the car, you can follow along with the data, and you can see what's going on, what might go wrong, or what's going well. And the same goes actually for telemetry or onboard cameras. That's all data that can be sent through, and that you can just follow along in the pit wall. So the idea is that actually one engineer can just have one laptop and have an overview of all the different cars that are on track, and he can or she can follow along quite nicely. Now, right now, we're actually the only company that can pretty much sell you a turnkey racing school system. So let's say you're a country or you're an investor who wants to develop their own experience center or their own racing school. We can supply you with everything you need. So all the cars, the systems, charging systems, how do you need to run it, the entire software to run it, how many days, how do you work out which driver can use which car, the AI systems, and so on. Even with racing simulators. So with Esports Africa, you're using a lot of gaming. The AI module also can work on a racing simulator and can actually give a driver live feedback on his racing simulator. Now combine that, of course, with the real life race car, and you have an entire data suite that allows you to really improve by using the least amount of track time. So you can save a bit more money.
That's a lot of information there. So yeah. I think when we spoke behind the scenes, we sort of talked about the school, how it aligns with the Africa's team STEM education. It talks about how Africa has always wanted a Formula One track on the continent, and this is a good entry point to have a track or a racing school that sort of introduces people, whips up the interest, and builds the drivers over a period of time. So if it's next year, next 2 years, or even in the next 5 years, we'll have chains of drivers available who will be able to take up part in either Formula 4, Formula 1 racing, or even e-racing. We can have our own e-racing league. I think you explained a bit more about the school, how the school works, and even how because it's what do you call it, battery powered. Africa has got more advantage of solar charging, reducing the cost of operations and all that.
Yeah. So with the racing school, what we do is we pretty much every month we do 3 or 4 different events. We have an event based for people without any experience or knowledge about race cars at all. So it might have been your first time at a racetrack, even your first time in a race car or in a car in general. And we have a program for that. So where you follow along an instructor on a private racetrack and you can actually learn, how to drive these cars. And then we do, of course, more advanced sessions where drivers drive multiple sessions. And in between each session, we do a complete analysis of the data and the video. So typical for a racing school. So that there aren't many changes for the fact that it's an EV car or a combustion car. So that kind of remains the same. It's just that with the new cars, with the new data suite, we can really improve on all of that and really expand the base knowledge that you can gain on such a day, right? Now, the cool thing about those electric cars as well is that it's really easy to just plug in different power modes. So we can just have an event in the morning, let's say for journalists or influencers or people who aren't really used to race cars. You then use the exact same car without really having to change anything, just at the push of a button. You have full power available, which is a completely different, mapping, right? And the car can be used for people who are actually training.
That's interesting.
Now that's with the school part. How can you rely it to STEM education? Well, I mean, if you have the entire racing school, you can just set it up from the baseline. That was a bit the idea. That's a bit what we've talked about.
Yeah.
So if you start building up your racing school, if you start building up your experiences at the racetrack, and you live in a country where there's a lot of sunlight all the time, what's to stop you from putting a few solar panels and harness that energy? Now, if at the same time your cars are running on solar energy, well, it kind of diminishes the costs per lap, right?
Yeah.
And it opens just a lot of possibilities for everyone to drive more, especially if it's in densely populated areas. So you don't need to worry about noise ordinances, and you have much more track time available to you.
That sounds like a brilliant one, because I do know that many diasporan Africans who are racing. And I do know that Africa has always been pushing for a racetrack on the continent. South Africa and Rwanda have sort of, spearheaded this campaign. So it's going to be a great idea to have more people interested in racing. Because I do know that the racing on the sims, the racing on the rigs in Africa with all these GT and Forza races, but we don't have a physical racing track or a racing school that sort of is dedicated to proper racing. So it's going to be a good idea to share this across and hopefully get more investors, more parties interested. Even the universities could take this on as part of the university education and entertainment provision for the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the moment you have your racing school or you've built your racetrack in a certain country, right, and it's new, what's to stop you for just ordering a few more cars if it's all running well, and then you can immediately organize more international competitions. Or let's say you guys buy some race cars, we have some race cars over in Belgium, why not do something together? So it opens immediately a lot of possibilities. And to me, at least I find the fact that it's a green car or that it works on battery technology is really interesting for companies and people who are always looking to push the boundaries forward a bit, or who are looking to invest in new kinds of technologies. Now, just to be absolutely clear, this isn't to say that we are trying to replace combustion engines or combustion engine racing. It's just a completely separate step, right? It's a completely different category. Now, there's a place for both of them. Like I've always said, I still love my Subaru Impreza, and I don't want to give it away, even though I pay way too much for gasoline.
Yeah.
I consume way too much gasoline, but Yeah, I just
The
love it.
experience is different.
Yeah, they just drive completely different. It's really fun to drive as well. And they're cool technologies. It opens up few possibilities. And if you're looking at, for example, education, you can, use them as a marketing tool as well. You can use them as a design tool as well. If you have a blank canvas race car, ask a group of marketeers, like create a livery, work together with artists, promote the local art. Why not? It's completely possible. Just, envision it and
you can create it.
Happen, I guess.
Right. So where do we find? Obviously, we need to find you. Where do we find you? LinkedIn, we connected, but where do we find the business and how do we engage? We need to provide some emails and some contacts that we can engage on.
The easiest will just be to connect on LinkedIn. So then it's Victor Heijman, and you can just send me any messages or ideas, and we'll go from there. For people who are really looking for investments or who want to know more about pricing and whatnot, we have complete, starter packs available that explains all the cost breakdown. What do the cars cost? What do they cost in long term? How much would simulators cost? How do you use them? So how do you set up a racing competition, for example, and how do you gain revenue from that? So we have entire information and pitch decks, let's say, available for that. If you want to race the cars, you're always welcome to visit us in Zolder and the racetrack. We have plenty of events throughout the season, but then of course in Belgium we stop pretty much at the end of October because it gets a bit too cold and too,
not conducive for the driving.
So we can't drive that many times, but we try to drive as much as we can. And anyone is welcome to book. The minimum age to drive our cars for our regular events is 14 years old. And for our more advanced events, for really the racing school events, we can have drivers as young as 12 years old. So we have a driver who's actually 12 years old, and he's really good. He drives quicker than me, which is horrible for my ego, but it's really amazing for that guy. So that's completely possible. And I mean, even if you're a bit older, it doesn't really matter. Anyone is welcome in the race cars, as long as you can get in and out safely. That's the only thing.
That's it.
And you can find us on Instagram at the ERA Racing School. And then for ERA Advanced, it's just contact via LinkedIn. That's a bit easier.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully this should be an entry point for brilliant opportunities across the African continent.
Hey, who knows?